probing your Facebook page during a job interview. Joining us now is Lawrence Burgee, Department Chair and Associate Professor of Information Systems at Stevenson University. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
I guess it's not a new thing to do a background check on a prospective employee, but it used to be really involved. It would take a lot of work. Now you just go to Google and type in the name.
That's true, and usually the first hit you get is going to be someone's Facebook page. And if they don't have their privacy settings set to be very private, then the employer-to-be can take a look at all the things they have posted on Facebook.
And sometimes there was a recent story about a gentleman interviewing for a corrections officer position in Maryland, and in the course of the interview, they asked for his password to Facebook to do a full probe. I think they've since suspended that policy, but you've heard about similar cases.
Heard of a lot of similar cases. In fact, from what we're hearing now, about half of all folks who go out on a job interview now are being asked to show their Facebook profile. Maybe not give up their username and password, but the typical case, and we had this with a student recently, where they went in for the interview and they were asked by another person in the office there when they came in for the interview, could this person be your friend for the next hour while we interview you? So you log into Facebook, you make this guy your friend. While you go in for the interview, this friend is looking through and rifling through all your Facebook postings and pictures and statements and everything you have there for about an hour, and then they defriend at the end of that hour.
That sounds pretty intrusive. What are they looking for? What could potentially be a legitimate interest of the potential employer?
Well, a lot of our students in my area, which is information systems, they're going out to get government jobs. And the danger with government jobs is most government agencies want you to be apolitical. They don't want you to have a political affiliation. And what happens is occasionally students or other young people or anyone can go out there and begin to make a lot of political statements, and it looks like they have some political axe to grind. And in fact, our students have even been reprimanded or talked to about, hey, you shouldn't even post whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, because it shows that you're divulging that information. And in many government organizations, they don't want you to divulge your political affiliation. So it's really a no-no to talk about religion or politics if there's a chance the employer-to-be could be looking at that information.
You know, a lot of people in my age bracket don't have a Facebook page, or if they have one, there's minimal stuff on it. But the students, the young people you're working with, I bet every single one has a Facebook page.
They do. It's rare that I encounter a student who doesn't have a Facebook page. I did a presentation at Stevenson recently, and every student in the room, which was over 100 students, had their hands up saying they have a Facebook page, and we talked about this. And the students feel like Facebook is their private domain, but the employers and the HR departments don't feel like that's a private domain. They feel that people are saying things very publicly that perhaps they shouldn't. And it does give the employer-to-be a chance to really look into the other side of this person, the electronic side of this person.
All right, now you're an expert on all this stuff, and I've read that everything on the internet is forever. Is it truly possible to clean up a Facebook page a couple of days before an interview?
You can clean up what's in for regular view. But if you really read the Facebook settings of the privacy settings and things, and in their materials it says that you can't really delete anything. You can make something non-viewable, but it stays in the Facebook database forever. And they use that for marketing purposes and things like that. But it's very difficult. But however, you can clean up on the cosmetic level how your Facebook looks. So if you had inappropriate pictures from spring break when you were a freshman, as one of our students did, and it meant she didn't get a job, then those things you would want to take off of there.
So tell me about that. So the employer went back and saw some pictures and told the student, this is why we're not giving you the job?
This was 2 years ago, and this was my first awareness of this, how the employers were really looking at Facebook. A young lady who I wrote a letter of recommendation for went in for an interview at a pharmaceutical. And she looked like a pharmaceutical rep. She had letters of recommendation. She was very well spoken. She had great grades. They interviewed her, but they did the thing where they looked at her Facebook while she was in on the interview, and they got back to her and said, you know, you look just like a pharmaceutical rep should be. You're classy. you're smart, and you have everything going for you, but we saw some really inappropriate pictures of you using alcohol and acting crazy at a bar during spring break in your freshman year or sophomore year. Right. And they said, for that reason, we're not going to give you the job because you need to be very responsible in handling drugs, prescription drugs, and
Sure.
things like that. And this doesn't look like behavior becoming of a pharmaceutical rep.
Okay.
And so she didn't get the job.
So our takeaway so far is get rid of the spring break photos.
Yes.
No politics. Anything else that you would keep off of a Facebook page?
Along with politics, you have to be careful of religious postings. Sometimes I have some friends that are constantly posting religious statements, and they could really come off as a holy roller. And again, an employer-to-be may not really like that. It's something you have to be very careful of how much you're posting, something along the lines of that. And pictures, you really should stay away from pictures that would be questionable, pictures of lewd behavior or drinking or anything that could suggest drug use or anything like that.
Even basic bad language, which you took bad language out of Facebook, there might not be anything left.
Well, this I see more than anything on Facebook. When we look at young people's Facebook, it's just loaded with really bad language and things you wouldn't want your parents to see or your grandmom to see. It's bad language. It's not thinking that this is public, and the things that many young people post out there as far as language could come back. An employer-to-be could say, "Wow, if this is how this person is when they're not at work, we're not really sure we like that kind of language. They're not." It's not showing that you're well-spoken or a good communicator.
These days, when jobs are scarce, I mean, why take a chance on somebody that you have a question about? So when you talk to students about this, I'm sure they're paying close attention, but do they buy into it? Do they go home and clean things up, do you think?
Many do, but some don't. And the ones that don't say, this really is my private domain, and I don't feel like the employer-to-be should look at this, and if the employer-to-be wants to look at this, then that's not who I want to work for. That's a minority of the students we talk to, but there are some that are very steadfast in that that's their private domain, even though it's public.
And you do have, within Facebook's control panel, you do have the ability to change a couple of settings that'll help a little bit.
Well, you can change about a dozen settings. So when you log into Facebook, if you go to the privacy options, which are in the upper right corner, you'll see all the privacy options. And by default, most of them are set to friends of friends. But what you should really do is set them every one of them, set them to friends only. And that way, only your trusted friends can see everything. Because if you set them all to friends of friends, suppose you have 100 friends, and each of them has 100 friends. That's 10,000 people that can see all of your information. And that's a lot different than friends only, which would be just those 100 friends.
Well, very good advice. Larry Burgee of Stevenson University, thank you for coming by.
Great, thank you very much.
We appreciate it. Now this week's Made